Hello, readers by eyes and by ears. This is Mari Chan, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing with another reading, the second reading of Ballad of Sword and Wine, Volume 3, also known as Tang Jiu by Tang Jiu Qing. I'm super excited about this. We are starting with Chapter 80. Let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 80, Bride Price. This passionate embrace lasted a long time, kisses heating up, a taste of the forbidden fruit that awakened an insatiable hunger for more. They were accustomed to testing each other's limits in the dark. As their affection deepened, a kiss was no longer sufficient to settle them. Desire, primal and raw in the prime of their lives, was laid bare between them. Such cloying and clingy intimacy was a gift unique to lovers, since it was a rare luxury to share each other's company without a moment apart. With so many eyes and ears in the imperial prison, the kiss was unspoken compensation for all the time they lost. When they broke apart, Xiao Chiye asked, "Where did you go?" Shen Zichuan settled into Xiao Chiye's lap, his thighs grinding against Xiao Chiye's. He took his time to slow his breathing, and with a hint of seduction in his half-lidded eyes, replied, "Counting money." Xiao Chiye pinched him. "Do you get off on counting money?" Shen Zichuan let out a husky laugh. "I get off on being pinched by you." The sound of that laugh made Xiao Chiye restless. He grabbed Shen Zichuan's chin with one hand to hold it in place. "Keep going with the seduction of yours." Shen Zichuan's collarbones peeked out from his loosened collars, and the stark bite marks from their last assignation had yet to fade. Paying them no mind, Shen Zichuan wet his bitten lips with his tongue. "I have something to discuss with you." Xiao Chiye pulled him up against him. "What a coincidence. I have something to discuss with you too." Shen Zichuan's mouth went dry under the heat of Xiao Chiye's gaze. He had to swallow before he could say, "Li Bei's military supplies for this year will have to wait until the 4th month to be dispatched from Juexi. I need to borrow the Northeast Provisions Trail." It took only a moment of thought for Xiao Chiye to see what he was up to. Supplies shipped via the Northeast Provisions Trail are personally escorted by the Li Bei Armored Cavalry. There are no inspection checkpoints along the way. You can use it to transport the silver, but it'll be subject to my brother's approval. If the money belongs to me, the heir of Li Bei won't agree to it. But if the sum of money is yours, he surely will. Shen Zichuan raised his chin slightly in Xiao Chiye's hold. "Consider this a bride price. Hold on to it for me, Argongzi." "Only that for a bride price?" Xiao Chiye laughed as he freed up one hand to pull the meal box on the table closer. "I'll have to think about it." Shen Zichuan sniffed. "There's grilled fish." He promptly forgot all about bride prices and pulled the chopsticks from the box with single-minded focus. Xiao Chiye watched as he ate. In the blink of an eye, the bowl of rice was half gone, and there were only bones left of the fish when it returned to the plate. Xiao Chiye didn't care for fish. He'd lost his mother at a young age, and his family, unlike the 8 great clans, wasn't one to spoil their children. Although he'd had a nanny and maidservants to see to his needs, he had been left to feed himself as soon as he learned to hold his chopsticks. He was a spirited child, and there were plenty of toys he'd rather play with than waste his time picking out fish bones. After choking on them enough times, he had lost all taste for the dish. "Is it good?" Xiao Chiye asked, eyes still on him. Apparently the chef is from Hezhou, and even harder to hire than the chefs in the palace. Xiao Chiye's chopsticks nimbly picked out the bones and fed Xiao Chiye the cleaned fish. Xiao Chiye tasted it and gave his critique. Passable." Having eaten his fill, Shen Zichuan set down his bowl. "What did you want to discuss with me?" Xiao Chiye handed him a handkerchief. "Our earlier investigation of Shangyuan missed a key piece of information. A few years ago, Xue Xiuzhuo bought a group of people from Shangyuan Villa and kept them in his manor. I'm afraid not even Shi Hongxuan knows about this." As expected, a shift came over Shen Zichuan's expression. "Xue Xiuzhuo is not the type to keep private prostitutes. He usually keeps his distance even in Ohua Pavilion. His behavior is far from normal. I agree, it's strange. Xiao Chuye leaned back in his chair. I have a hunch this has something to do with Xiang Yuan's false testimony. But if this is true, he bought them years ago. Shen Zichuan furrowed his brow. If this was a means to bring Xiang Yuan under his control, then this move was planned very far in advance. Why would this give him leverage over Xiang Yuan? If placed too early, some pawns won't stand the test of time. I have a feeling he didn't make such a move solely to get a handle on Xiang Yuan. Xiao Chuye cocked his head, sorting out his reasoning. He couldn't have predicted you plotting the assassination attempt. Any subsequent developments would have been hard for him to guard against. Xiao Chuye picked from this tangle of strings, one at a time. His wolfish intuition told him this matter wasn't so simple. Improvisation. Shen Zichuan cupped Xiao Chuye's face and eased it upright. You're right. The puppet string tied to Xiang Yuan wasn't specifically intended to deal with you. Her perjury in the assassination case was merely an opportunity seized. That he could so readily throw Xiang Yuan under the wheels shows she was of little significance. There's some other reason he bought those people. Xiang Yuan was merely a convenient pawn that came with it. What's more, she's a pawn he couldn't wait to discard. Xiao Chuye was just a step behind. Then, the key to understanding his purchase of those people lies in the group of people he bought. Shen Zichuan finished softly. They looked at each other, caught yet again in a labyrinth of unknowns. Xiang Yuan Villa was a brothel. Who there would be of such great importance to Xue Xiuzhuo? He bought over 10 people to obscure the truth. There's no knowing who among them was his intended purchase. I doubt even Xiang Yuan herself knows, Xiao Chuye said. I need to convince Xue Xiuyu to probe into this again. His status in the Xue Manor allows him free access to the estate. Xue Xiuzhuo might deny entry to outsiders, but he can't refuse his own brother. This piece of information was critical, but at present, Shen Zichuan could make neither heads nor tails of it. Part of the reason he had moved on Xi Hongxuan now was out of apprehension about Xue Xiuzhuo, who already had Xi Hongxuan dancing to his tune. Rather than becoming more clear and decipherable with the passage of time, this person had, contrariwise, become increasingly obscure and unreliable. There's still time. Shen Zichuan seemed to be thinking aloud. The moment we get overly anxious and begin to second-guess ourselves, it'll cost us any advantage we have. If he hasn't made his move, it must mean the time is not right yet. This is an opportunity we can exploit. Right now, we're the ones moving in the shadows, while he's out in the open. We stand to learn some crucial information if we simply follow the clues. Xi Hongxuan has always been friendly with Xue Xiuzhuo. Even if he didn't know Xue Xiuzhuo purchased those prostitutes, he'll know something others don't. I'll question him again later. After all this talk, you still haven't let Argongzi in on the details. Shen Zichuan made a move to get up, but Xiao Chuye pinned him on his lap. How much silver did you swindle out of him? Shen Zichuan snapped out of his thoughts and pursed his lips lightly. He raised 4 fingers, just as he had before. Xiao Chuye grasped those fingertips tight. That much. I accept. Put it down as my bride price. Quick. At least pretend not to jump at the first offer. 4 million is too little. You're being too generous, Xiao Chuye said. A starting price of 4 million. Since you're so good at making money, Argongzi will take whatever price you offer. That made Shen Zichuan laugh. I told him Wei Huaigu wanted 4 million taels. He didn't hesitate for a moment. 4 million is clearly a drop in the ocean to the Xi clan. Seeing how happy he was tonight, Xiao Chuye made no further mention of Xue Xiuzhuo. He bounced Shen Zichuan a little on his lap. Only the Xi clan themselves know precisely how much money they have. Everyone else can only see the salterns and copper mines they operate, but their business ventures aren't limited to the entirety of the empire. They stretch all the way into foreign lands. The common rich young masters make their fun visiting brothels and gambling dens, but Xi Hongxuan's idea of a good time is running them. That broker on Donglong Street belongs to him too. Their account books implicate plenty of bigwigs in the imperial court. all of whom have fields and businesses down as collateral. They have no choice but to keep Shi Hongxuan happy. This time it's 4 million. How much will you get out of him next time? The Northeast Provisions Trail is only open twice a year. How to hide and spend that much silver? These are problems you'll have to give some thought to. No one has ever broken into the Shi clan's vault. Simply keeping the money where it is would be the most secure method. If we were to spend the money now, it'd be too hard to escape the eyes of the imperial court. Even the accounts of your 20,000-strong imperial army have to be gone over with a fine-tooth comb. If this sum is not spent and disposed of perfectly, our Gongzi will find himself in jail awaiting quite a trial. Spending money, huh? Xiao Chiye said, his curiosity piqued. What do you have in mind besides play and fun? Or are you saving it for Zhongbo? No destination in mind yet. Seeing that their time was almost up, Shan Zichuan stood and refastened his collar with one hand. Our Gongzi doesn't handle household affairs, so how would you know the value of daily staples like tea, rice, oil, and salt? Even if we can't spend it right away, we'll have plenty of uses for this money in the future. There's no harm keeping it on hand. It's better to prepare for all contingencies. So intently did they discuss Shi Hongxuan's household finances and assets, as if they already belonged to them, that it was clear they were bent on extorting every last copper. Xiao Chiye still had to return to the banquet on the Kailing River, and could only stay for a few words. He had rushed over as soon as he had a free moment to see Shan Zichuan, and now that he'd fed the man, he couldn't afford to linger. He'd already mounted his horse when he recalled something else and tugged on the reins. The officials' review will happen in the next few days. The Grand Secretariat has proposed a candidate for the Provincial Administration Commissioner to oversee the 6 prefectures of Zhongbo. Jiang Qingshan, the current Provincial Administration Commissioner of Jueshi, is already on his way to report to Chudu on imperial orders. My guess is it's him. I've long heard of his name and reputation. He displayed courage and foresight when he handled the relief efforts for the 13 cities of Jueshi 6 years ago. As he spoke, Shan Zichuan recalled that this man was also on good terms with Xie Xiuzhuo and couldn't help but pause. Xiao Chiye guessed the turn of his mind. Even if he's friendly with Xie Xiuzhuo, it doesn't necessarily mean he's in Xie Xiuzhuo's camp. When he enters the capital, you should meet him and try to get a read on him. He comes from a common background and doesn't rely on the noble clans for support. When the time comes, decide for yourself if he can be used. Seeing Shan Zichuan hesitating on the steps, Xiao Chiye raised a hand to beckon him. Shan Zichuan stepped forward, ready to hear him out, but Xiao Chiye kept silent and merely reached out to ruffle his hair. A moment later, Snowcrest reared back and broke into a gallop. Good Ting pushed the gates open, and without another word, Xiao Chiye sped away into the night. Chapter 81. Shadows. The food in the prison was filthy and rotten. Shi Hongxuan's constitution had already been weakened by the pox, and now, with his stomach roiling, he was in abject misery. His mental state was crumbling. Like I said. Okay. He fell often into a lethargic sleep and woke always in darkness. Gradually, he lost track of time. Without any window to let in a breeze, the air in the narrow cell was foul and stale, and a musty smell hung in his nose. No ordinary man would be able to stand it. Shi Hongxuan was gravely ill. What was more, he couldn't turn or stretch freely in the cell. All he could do was lie paralyzed on the rough straw mat and let his consciousness drift amid the damp and cold. As usual, the warden slid open the door flap and shoved some rice through. Hearing no movement from inside, the man looked in through the hole. All he could see was Shi Hongxuan's drooping arm. Fearing his prisoner was dead, the warden opened the door and shone the light into Shi Hongxuan's face. Bad idea. I don't trust that. Don't do that. Shi Hongxuan struggled to open his eyes. Through dry and cracking lips, he rasped out, "Sir, please spare me some water." The warden poured the bowl of water he'd brought onto Shi Hongxuan's face. With great effort, Shi Hongxuan opened his mouth and gulped the water, careless of his dampened collars. After several swallows, he managed to pull himself together. Thank you. The warden threw the bowl away, grabbed the oil lamp, and made to leave. With an unexpected burst of strength, Xi Hongxuan surged up and grabbed hold of the warden's clothes. A strained smile split his round face as he said through hacking coughs, "Hey, pal, tell me, this this isn't the prison at all. Am I right?" The warden swatted Xi Hongxuan's hand away. Xi Hongxuan burst into hoarse laughter, gasping violently as he lay on the straw mat. He pulled at his soaked lapels and slid his gaze to the pitch-dark ceiling. "This isn't a prison," he murmured. "I should have realized a long time ago. It's been days and days. Even if Kong Chu hasn't come to interrogate me, officials from the Ministry of Justice ought to be making their rounds. Too quiet. It's far too quiet in here." Xi Hongxuan fixed his unblinking stare on the warden. "I've done some calculations. You deliver food every day at precisely the same time. You even push the tray into exactly the same position. Pal, the average warden isn't nearly this rigid. In the last few days, not one man came to exchange shifts with you in guarding the prison door. You wouldn't accept my money. And these sleeves of yours, they're pristine, without so much as a speck of dust. You're tall and muscular, discreet and meticulous. You're from the embroidered uniform guard, aren't you?" The warden's face was devoid of expression as he carried the oil lamp out and closed the door behind him. Xi Hongxuan listened to the sound of metal chains winding around the handle, then pounded his fist down on the straw mat under him. "Shanzichuan! Shanzichuan!" Xi Hongxuan struck the ground until his knuckles were red, then shouted at the top of his lungs, "Plotting against me! To think you'd scheme against me! You out there! Tell him to come!" There was no reply from the darkness. Xi Hongxuan dug his fingers into the mat. His voice was spinning as he spat. "He wants money, doesn't he? Call him over. As long as he lets me out. He struggled to swallow a mouthful of saliva, then pulled at his hair and gasped, "I'll give him the money. I can't fucking stand it anymore." The warden sat down in the hallway beside the oil lamp and popped a few broad beans into his mouth, which he washed down with wine. The metal door that held Xi Hongxuan had been well made. All he could hear from within were faint sobs and whimpers, like the wind sighing in the dead of night. Xi Hongxuan's vision grew dim and murky. He didn't dare sleep again for fear that he would never wake. By the time Shanzichuan next showed himself, Xi Hongxuan had reached a state of exhausted calm. Shanzichuan remained on his feet as he observed Xi Hongxuan. Many years ago, Xi Hongxuan had narrowly escaped the jaws of death while out at sea. Since the day he had clawed his way back to life, he had never been in such a sorry state. He was different from other descendants of the noble clans. He wasn't afraid to take risks, nor was he afraid of looking wretched, if it meant he would survive. He let Shanzichuan look as his parched throat constricted around a disconcerting laugh. "Lanzhou, you've got some balls. 4 million. I nearly met my end being fleeced by you." It wasn't easy to find this place, neither too conspicuous nor too far away. Shanzichuan let out a soft sigh. I really wasn't expecting you to be so discerning in your observations." Xi Hongxuan pointed with a shaking arm. "Birds die for food, and men die for money. Brother, I'm more than willing to give you this sum, but don't tell me you want my life for this piddling bit of money." His voice was weak and unsteady, but even starvation and illness couldn't strip him of his adaptability. "Lanzhou, I could have continued pretending to be oblivious. I'm the only one who knows where the Xi clan's keys are kept. I could have run you in circles and extracted myself from this place through trickery. But see, I didn't. I still hold our bit of brotherhood close to my heart. Lanzhou." We joined hands to kill Shiguan and Jilei. Today, you're the target of envy in the embroidered uniform guard. If you screw me over and kill me now, you'll lose the Shi clan support forever. The higher you climb in the embroidered uniform guard, the narrower your path will become. You know what it feels like to be stuck in circumstances so thorny you can hardly move a step forward, don't you? Which of those old men with their hereditary positions would ever be willing to submit to you? You're an ambitious man. But wasn't it only on my account that Han Cheng tolerated you? If you kill me, you will become the target of all. Shan Zichuan crouched down, a handkerchief between his fingers as he looked at Xi Hongxuan and asked seriously, "Then, in your opinion, what should I do?" Xi Hongxuan had seen this expression on Shan Zichuan countless times before. Shan Zichuan's intent to kill flashed in his eyes like a blade. Xi Hongxuan dripped with cold sweat as he locked eyes with him. "You and I haven't reached the point of no return. Shan Zichuan, I lost this time. I concede. Suffering defeat in business is part of the game. It's no disgrace. Why should I make a scene and fall out with you over a trivial matter like this? I'll tell you the truth, but I'm afraid of you. But it's because I fear you that I want to keep working alongside you. Think about it. Kill me now, and you'll have the 4 million. But if you have me on your side, you'll have the Shi clan's mountains of gold and silver. I admit defeat. So why stain your hands with blood? We still have all the days ahead of us to lord over Chudu." That's a fair point," Shan Zichuan said. "But it's a tad too easy to dismiss me with words like admit defeat, isn't it? I've heard the second young master has 68 keys. How about we split them, 40-60? I can't tell you how it set my mind at ease." Xi Hongxuan slowly levered himself up. The look he turned on Shan Zichuan was ferocious. "I'll give you the keys, but once you take them, you can't ask for Qi Huilian again. How about it? Are you willing?" Shan Zichuan slowly raised his fingers before flicking the handkerchief as if bored stiff. "You think Qi Huilian is worth all that? Naturally, I'll take the keys. If he's worth nothing, it's pointless to retain him. I'll kill him then." Shan Zichuan began to laugh. "You think I don't know where he is? Look where we are now. You still want to test me?" "Who's testing whom?" Xi Hongxuan dragged himself toward Shan Zichuan, face finally twisting. "I understand you, Lanzhou. You won't fool me with the same trick twice. Every word you speak is designed to deceive. The more you pretend not to give a damn about someone, the more important they are to you. You lied to me that day in the courtyard, and now you intend to tell the same lie again. I may not be a man of brilliant intellect, but I'm not that dumb. You don't know where he is. If you knew, you'd have killed me the second you laid hands on the money. So how did it go? Shan Zichuan, still couldn't find him despite searching all over Chudu, could you?" Shan Zichuan's grip on the handkerchief tightened. Xi Hongxuan smoothed aside his matted hair. "Eloquent you may be, but you've forgotten one thing. Your careful concealment of him was enough to make me suspicious. Even when I think you're speaking the truth, I still have to be on my guard. The thing I fear when dealing with you is that any time you turn around, you might stab me." Shan Zichuan's eyes were hard as he looked at Xi Hongxuan. "What do you want?" "I want to get out of here." Xi Hongxuan pointed at the door. "I want to walk out of here unscathed. If I'm not out tonight, expect Qi Huilian's corpse to be cooling on your doorstep tomorrow morning. Do you believe me? Go ahead and try me. Shidan, that rat bastard who betrayed his master for money, must have told you all the men under my command are the children of servants in our clan. Hundreds of people rely on me for their safety. Even from in here, I have plenty of ways to dispose of Qi Huilian." "You're lying." That grim ruthlessness within Shan Zichuan surged up as he stood and took a few steps back. The dimness settled in from all sides, morphing his cold face into that of a behemoth lurking in the dark. "This place is isolated. There are no outsiders. How could you pass on any message? Your death is so near at hand. Yet, still you're trying to play games with me." Shan Zichuan's tone was icy and sharp with the shadow of a smile. Sure, let's play. I'll escort you out. I had my doubts about you. Why wouldn't I take precautions? Shi Hongshuan was drenched in cold sweat. He could feel this chance slipping through his fingers. His voice rose with every word. I told the guards I'd head down once every 2 weeks. If I don't appear, they'll dispose of him. You asked me last time if I dare believe your words. Shan Zichuan, this time I'm asking you. Do you dare believe mine? Shan Zichuan didn't make a sound. Shi Hongshuan mellowed his tone, as if soothing his captor. If you already bought Xidan, you must know I'm the only one who knows where Qi Huilian is. I've long understood that no one in this world can be trusted. I left myself countless escape routes. Lanzhou, why must we both lose here? Fighting like this will benefit neither of us. Aren't you making all these moves in the hope of gaining something? There's no profit in killing me. Surely you won't go through with it. Whatever it is you're lacking, I have it. I'll give it to you. Only lend me your guts and your wits, and we can flourish together in Chudu. Look at Jianheng. He's a good emperor. Those are few and far between. For men like you and me, he's our ticket to success. This is a meteoric rise we're talking about, Lanzhou. Do you imagine Xiao'er will take you in if you kill me and offend the noble clans? How long can the Xiao clan's infallible reputation and unmitigated success in battle continue? Xiao Fangxue is old. If Xiao Jiming should die too, then what is Xiao'er good for alone? They are doomed to fail and fall. Lanzhou. Shi Hongshuan seemed to lament, yet continued to persuade. We've both suffered under people's thumbs. How can you choose to submit to Xiao'er and be at his beck and call? The only things in this world that will never abandon you are money and power. Join forces with me, and I'll give you the money. Help me keep the Shi clan intact, and we can bring our business to the next level. When that day comes, no one jockeying for power will be able to knock us from our pedestals. You want me to swallow up the other clans and proclaim myself victor, so why would you bind yourself now with any constraints? He continued without pause. And think about the 6 prefectures of Zhongbo. Don't you want to rebuild Zhongbo and avenge your past humiliation? Shenwei's name may be mud, but you can smash the gates of Zhongbo open with silver. They're so poor there, in such dire straits, that they're eating their neighbors' children. You could be their savior. After that, who would dare stand in your way? Who would dare curse you? Put money in the right hands, and all this can be yours. Can the Empress Dowager promise the same? Can Xiao'er promise the same? Lanzhou, why do you hesitate? We can still join forces and climb our way to the top just as before. Shan Zichuan appeared moved by his words. He no longer brimmed with murderous intent, and even his tone had lost some of its edge. Had you been this candid earlier, we wouldn't have ended up here. You're right. By joining forces, you and I can save ourselves a lot of trouble. To a merchant, profit is king. If our collaboration didn't yield sufficient benefits, would I waste my breath? Shi Hongshuan's back prickled. His wound from the building collapse had scabbed over, and it itched so fiercely these days that it hurt. He took a few breaths, then continued. Then there's no time to lose. Release me now. Once I'm out of here, we'll sit down and have a proper chat. More than 10 martial arts experts were waiting in the Shi Manor in Chudu. Shi Hongshuan had spent a pretty sum hiring them to intimidate Shan Zichuan the last time, and had kept them on out of caution. In truth, he was burning with anxiety. He still couldn't figure out what Shan Zichuan was thinking. Yet this only solidified his intent to kill. He'd burn any bridges he had to in order to fight to the end. And no matter what, he had to get out of here first. Only when he had his freedom could he find some variable to exploit and turn the tide. He wanted Shan Zichuan dead. He wanted it so much he couldn't wait for tomorrow, much less sit here wheedling him like this. 2 people who'd worked together a long time were usually evenly matched. They could sit down and trade barbs as equals. Shi Hongxuan felt that he and Shen Zichuan had already lost this balance. While Shen Zichuan bounded his way up the official ranks, Shi Hongxuan found himself fettered in shackles of Shen Zichuan's making, chains that rendered him incapable of controlling the situation as he had at the outset. Shi Hongxuan still didn't know where it had all gone wrong, but he had a businessman's instincts. He saw now that he had been walking in circles like a man under a spell, and knew beyond a doubt that Shen Zichuan was to blame. They had been in cahoots until now, but other than killing Xu Guan to get his hands on the Xi clan's keys, every sweetness Shi Hongxuan had tasted had been fleeting. Of the two of them, only Shen Zichuan had truly climbed to greater heights, power firmly in hand. Shi Hongxuan knew he had been made a fool of, but he maintained a careful look of docility, as if he worshipped the ground Shen Zichuan walked on, yet feared him to the point he dared not move against him. Tianya cracked the door open and held up a lamp for them. The skin of Shen Zichuan's exposed wrists was pristine. With his side profile bathed in lamplight, he looked no different from the way he appeared in the daytime as he said politely, "After you, please." Shi Hongxuan breathed a silent sigh of relief. Chapter 82. Debt Collection. The Xi Manor was located along one of the winding inner streets of Chudu, on the south side of the city. In comparison to the sprawling Pan and Fei manors, its grounds were significantly smaller. It was also very near the manor belonging to Prince Qin of the Guangcheng Emperor's reign. Although the Xi clan had special permission to expand, the first few clan heads had been cautious and didn't dare expand or embellish their mansion beyond the standard regulations. The interior architecture of the manor was more in the style of Juexi, while the pavilions and terraces were restrained and common-looking. Shi Hongxuan was on tenterhooks the entire journey back, but once he heard the ringing of horses' hooves come to a stop, he knew he was safely home. Still wary, he bunched up the soaked, wrinkled hem of his robe and hurried off the carriage. Shen Zichuan was already standing outside, sizing up the Xi Manor. It's an old mansion. Shi Hongxuan kept his tone light, as if this was any other day. We've talked of renovating it for years, but never had the time. Come over in a few days when the weather warms up, and I'll show you the new plans. Shen Zichuan turned his eyes toward the estate next door. The green glazed tiles peeking over vermilion walls were standard flourishes on a prince's manor, but the overgrown trees obscuring the view made them eerie. Shi Hongxuan followed his gaze. Prince Qin's manor. The prince suffered from consumption and passed away a year before the Xiande Emperor ascended the throne. No one's lived there since. I imagine it'll be bestowed on someone as a reward eventually. Shen Zichuan didn't shift his gaze away. It looks even more imposing than Prince Chu's manor. Of course. Shi Hongxuan jerked his thumb heavenward. The current emperor wasn't favored by the Guangcheng Emperor as a child. It was the crown prince, Prince Qin, and the former emperor who stood out among the imperial heirs. What a pity. The crown prince slit his own throat in the Temple of Guilt. Prince Qin passed from illness in this very residence, and the former emperor lingered for years on his deathbed. He suddenly smiled. But of course, how would our current emperor have had the chance to sit on the throne otherwise? Prince Qin was a rather pitiable figure himself. He had a close relationship with his father during the Guangcheng Emperor's final years, and the emperor visited him often. But someone in his employ beat a few villagers to death at his country estate. An official complaint was lodged against him, and the Guangcheng Emperor sentenced him to house arrest in that manner. It was during this period that Prince Qin contracted consumption. When he heard his son was so ill, the Guangcheng Emperor made a special trip down to visit him. No one knows what they talked about, but they parted on bad terms. After that day, Prince Qin fell out of favor. The emperor's mandate to self-reflect behind closed doors dragged on, keeping him a prisoner until his death. Shen Zichuan tucked this information away but remained silent. When Shi Hongxuan saw he had no inclination to discuss the topic, he raised a hand to wave off the servants swarming over to them. This manor of mine is not as big as the manors of princes and other aristocrats, but There's still some distance to walk. Lanzhou, I'm weak as a kitten, and I stink to high heaven. It'll be faster if we ride. The servants from the Xi manor rushed to prepare sedan chairs. Xi Dan was the head steward of the household, but he didn't dare show himself now. It was instead Xi Hongxuan's eldest sister-in-law who came out to welcome them. Xi Hongxuan loved this woman, or so he claimed. Shen Zichuan had heard him repeat countless times that his desire to kill Xi Guan was born of the hatred he bore his elder brother for stealing his intended bride. Yet his expression was indifferent as he watched her descend the steps. He didn't ask for her help supporting him either, but dismissed her with a perfunctory wave as he took his seat in the small sedan. Shen Zichuan, lifting the curtain of his own sedan with an outstretched finger, saw it all clearly. Tianya, walking alongside, opened his mouth to speak. A slight shake of Shen Zichuan's head stopped him. The sedans entered the Xi manor grounds and made several turns before arriving at the courtyard where Xi Hongxuan made his quarters. His courtyard was markedly different from the rest of the estate. It was tastefully decorated, and the long corridor connected Xi Hongxuan's room to a row of brightly lit offices with windows and doors thrown open, supplemented, at this hour, by a row of brightly lit lanterns. The clacking of abacuses mingled with the rise and fall of various regional accents in a noisy confusion. A woven awning stretched over the tea table on the open ground before the front hall, and seated and standing in its shelter were various shopkeepers and bookkeepers who had come from all over, seeking the master of the house. At the sight of Xi Hongxuan, this milling crowd stood and crowded around the sedan. Those who were here to report expenses, prepare stock, demand payments, and make greetings mobbed him at once, creating quite a din. Xi Hongxuan stepped down and bowed to the crowd. "This humble one has only just returned. Look at the state I'm in. I can't do any work just yet. No need to be anxious. Wait here and someone will call you into the office on that end. I merely spent the past few days having some fun. Nothing of importance. Business continues as usual. Oh, as for the shopkeepers here to demand payment, fret not. When has the Xi clan ever missed a deadline or defaulted on a debt? As long as you have the memorandum with you, I'll pay your claims in full." Anxious to keep Shen Zichuan steady, Xi Hongxuan pushed aside the crowd and called for the attendants to hurry over and serve up tea for those waiting. Politely cupping his hands to his guests the entire way, he finally managed to chivvy Shen Zichuan into a relatively quiet hall at the back of the courtyard. "Lanzhou, take a seat. I'll go wash up a little and change." Xi Hongxuan shook his dirty robe for emphasis before instructing the servants to prepare refreshments. Shen Zichuan took his seat and drank the proffered tea. By the time the food and wine were served, Xi Hongxuan had returned in a fresh silk robe the color of oxblood. He took his seat and personally filled Shen Zichuan's cup with wine. "Sorry to have kept you waiting." Xi Hongxuan touched the flesh of his neck and chuckled. "It's good to be home. That cell was awfully damp. I can't tell you how refreshed I feel after washing up. Here, Lanzhou, drink. You showed no mercy this time, did you? A few more days in there, and I would have been dead meat." "I wouldn't go so far as that," Shen Zichuan said with a smile. "All this was only to give you a little scare. We're friends. How could I deal you such a vicious blow?" "And yet you caused me so much grief," Xi Hongxuan groused, smiling bitterly. "The state of my back is frightful, and I'll have to call for a physician to take a look later. Could you not have simply told me you were in want of 4 million? Hi, you had to go around in such a big circle." The two men chatted merrily over wine, showing no signs that they had been at daggers drawn a mere hour ago. The wine was excellent, as were the dishes. Xi Hongxuan wiped his mouth with a napkin and spread his arms to sprawl back on the chair, satisfied. "It's not that I'm unwilling to give you the keys, but Lanzhou, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If I return Xi Huilian to you, I'll lose my insurance. I can't hand the keys and the old man over to you." Shen Zichuan had only picked at the food before setting down his chopsticks. "I've done you a disservice, it's true. But second young master, there are some things I didn't fabricate. Make a few inquiries and you'll know that Wei Huaigu truly wishes you ill. He didn't want you out of there at all. They all have their own ulterior motives." Xi Hongxuan wiped the fine beads of sweat at his temples. But if you were able to smuggle me out of prison without anyone noticing, the court must have decided to go easy on me. I have His Majesty to thank for that, I assume. His Majesty went to great pains to protect you, so the prison can't overstep their authority to investigate further. But you've been temporarily suspended from your post and sent home. You won't be able to carry out your duties in the Bureau of Evaluations. Shan Zichuan changed the topic. I've brought you home as you asked. We can renegotiate the matter of the keys, but I want to see Qi Huilian now. Shi Hongxuan threw aside the napkin and smiled as he rubbed his full stomach. If you want to discuss the keys, we have to come to an understanding now. Lanzhou, you've never had dealings in business before, so you don't know how it works. It's not any simpler than being an official. You can hold the keys and carry out the ingots, but that silver is dead weight. If you take it out, sooner or later, you'll spend it all. Why not leave it where it is and let me continue to invest it in our businesses? Isn't it wonderful to let your money beget more money? However much you need in the future, only give me a number. He sat unmoving in his chair. The earlier clamor outside had faded without them taking notice. The windows and doors in the hall were wide open, and the weeping willows outside, shrouded in inky darkness, looked like a row of hanged ghosts crammed at the windows looking in. The night was still and quiet, and the candle wicks popped in the silence. Even the servants that had been waiting on them seemed to have vanished. It was as if the two of them were the only ones left in the estate. Shan Zichuan eased himself back in his chair. How quickly your tune has changed. After stepping out of that prison cell, it seems the second young master has found his courage. My stomach is full, and I'm much more comfortable now. Shi Hongxuan looked at Shan Zichuan and pointed to his own head. Even better, I'm still sober. I'm telling you, it's not a choice between Qi Huilian and the keys. You may take Qi Huilian. You may not have the keys. Give the nod, and you can have him tonight. Shan Zichuan let the silence stretch. He slid the little bamboo fan out of the pocket in his sleeve and held it for a moment, as if to weigh it. That's not what we discussed. The world of business changes at a rapid pace, Shi Hongxuan answered gruffly. Earlier, you held all the bargaining chips, and now I do. The terms of our discussion naturally might shift accordingly. Shan Zichuan smiled. And if I insist on both, then it will come to naught. Shi Hongxuan patted his belly. Lanzhou, let me offer you a piece of advice. Don't be a greedy son of a bitch. People are happiest when they're content with their lot. You've got your 4 million. I won't pursue it further. This is an adequate gesture of goodwill, is it not? The money has yet to be delivered into my hands. Shan Zichuan didn't divulge any details about his plans to use the Northeast Provisions Trail to transport it in 2 shipments. Instead, he said, it's not easy to move that much money. You know that better than I do. I have my own channels for escorting goods. Jiang Qingxiang is sharp, but he can't keep an eye on everything. Shi Hongxuan spoke with confidence now, sensing he'd gained the upper hand. I can get the money to you. I said it once, and I'll say it again. Lanzhou, I'm willing to give you the 4 million, but you have to tell me the truth. Were these incidents, the collapse of my Ohua pavilion, the flooding, and the pox, your doing? Of course not, Shan Zichuan said. What I told you was the honest truth. If you want to know more, you'll have to ask Xue Xiuzhuo. I see you're keeping a tight grip on the keys, so I won't insist. You said it yourself. We must work together if we want to rise. Now, can you give me Qi Huilian? Shi Hongxuan pushed his chair back and stood. I sent someone to fetch him ages ago. You've already waited so many days. What's a little longer now? He paced back and forth, belly first, to aid digestion. Looking thoughtful, he made his way to the door and took a step out to shout, Where is he? The servant outside murmured something in reply. Straining to hear, Shi Hongxuan took a few more steps down the stairs. The courtyard was dead silent. When he was well clear of Shan Zichuan, he jerked around and bellowed, Shut the doors! At once, the wide-open doors of the hall swung shut, and the planks were secured over the windows with a symphony of thuds. The hall was sealed in the blink of an eye. As the rustle of night wind sent the grim willow swaying, several figures materialized out of the dark to stalk the edges of the hall. Xuan Xuan, this is a bad move. This is a bad move, my buddy. The affable mask had fallen. Xi Hongxuan gritted his teeth in rage. Shan Zichuan, you dare to ask for Qi Huilian back? How greedy can you be? You're a snake trying to swallow an elephant. You think you can treat me like a fool and push me around? I'll take your life tonight. He retreated a few more steps. Bring forth that double-crossing Xidan. We'll show him what happens to those who bite the hand that feeds him. Xidan was led out, back hunched and hands securely bound. On seeing him, Xi Hongxuan gave him a kick to the face that sent the man toppling to the ground, then stumped violently on him. The balls on you, to sell your master out for money. Despicable bastard, rotten piece of shit. You forgot your parents are in my hands. I'll see that your whole family follows you to the grave tonight. His eyes blazed with hate. Fetch my sister-in-law up here too. Does she think I don't know she's screwing this lowlife behind my back? Really? Xidan, you don't have the guts to betray me on your own, but lust is like a blade hanging over your head, isn't it? You have only yourself to blame if you let someone exploit your weaknesses and end up betraying your master for money. Scum! He kicked Xidan until the man rolled over and howled in pain. More men hauled over the lady of the house, whose knees buckled the moment she saw Xi Hongxuan. She knelt before him, wailing and pleading without cease. Xi Hongxuan let her hug his thigh and looked down at her, grim-faced. Did you know he meant me harm? You knew, and you still chose to help him. Were you planning on running off together? I've never treated anyone better in my life than I treated you. I gave you all my love and most of my life, and this is how you repay me. Eyes red-rimmed, Xi Hongxuan hauled his sister-in-law up by the arm. Xi Guan snatched you away, and I snatched you back. I accorded you the same honor and prestige you've always enjoyed. I showered you with gold and jade so you wanted for nothing. I held you in cupped hands like my most precious treasure. You... Oh, you... Xi Hongxuan was so consumed by hatred he could barely speak. His heart was dripping blood. You can leave this earth with him. I'll send you both on your way tonight. Xi Hongxuan shoved her down and spat on her. Draw your blades, he said with a fiendish smile. Mince up these heartless and ungrateful creatures, and we can save on the dishes that accompany our wine tonight. Second master has got money to spare. He fished out a handful of gold and silver ingots from his lapels and sleeves and scattered them over the ground, where they rolled in all directions. Amid the clatter of money colliding, Xi Hongxuan stumbled back a few steps and burst out laughing, tears streaming down his face until his shoulders shook with sobs. Everyone in this world is driven by self-interest. With my money, I will have no shortage of true hearts. For money, a person will kill their closest kin, their flesh and blood, even their own beloved. Standing amid his discarded gold and silver, Xi Hongxuan raised his arms high and shouted himself hoarse. Do it! I'm here to collect my debt. The men drew their blades, and cold steel flashed in the night. Chapter 83. Scenery of Spring. Dark clouds shrouded the moon, offering only flickers of ghostly shadows. The scrape of blades unsheathed was like silk ripping in the wind, a rending that warned of imminent peril. From inside the hall came 3 taps of the bamboo fan. Shan Zichuan was as composed as ever as he picked up the jug to pour himself another cup of wine. You're right. Shan Zichuan lifted the cup to his lips. We do have scores to settle tonight. Xi Hongxuan lowered his arms and watched with cool detachment as the crowd of fighters swarmed toward the hall. Clever as you are, if you'd only been obedient, you would have suffered far less. The moment you entered Chudu, you became a caged bird in the pavilion, oblivious to the danger of the spreading blaze ahead, said Shan Zichuan. You're both fortunate and unfortunate. Back then, you fought the waves for a chance at life, and for that, I toast to you. As he spoke, he poured the wine over the ground, as if to honor someone already dead. You and I both understand that those trapped by their circumstances are least likely to be obedient. 9 out of 10 people who meekly obey will not survive until heaven opens its eyes and lends them a hand. I fought against the battering waves. You're fighting against the very same thing. Human lives are the most worthless thing of all. Shan Zichuan, I toast to you too. You survived despite all the torture and torment you endured back then. But tonight, you're going to topple like a toy boat capsizing in a drain. Xi Hongxuan snickered, then smoothed his features into indifference. Between the two of us, only one may live. You've taken your bath and had your wine. Shan Zichuan dropped his wine cup and rose to face the doors. He grasped the hilt of Avalanche, his thumb pressing down on that white pearl as he chuckled. Do you really not intend to reveal Qi Huilian's whereabouts before I see you off? The courtyard was suddenly illuminated by a burst of fiery light. Xi Hongxuan turned. Flames had sprung up on the building behind him. He bellowed, "Don't let him draw you into a fight. Whoever can take his head off will have 100 taels of gold and silver." The doors and windows splintered as the men lurking in the shadows pounced like wolves. Shan Zichuan's blade sprang free of its sheath. He took 2 steps forward, and blood splattered from ground to roof, following the arc of his sword. The long blade that was Avalanche seemed forged from ice and cast from snow as flesh parted under its edge. So fast, not a drop of blood stained the blade, even as the paper in every window was dyed with sprays of blood. Avalanche was the same as Wolf's Fang. Every blade lay dormant in Chudu, collecting dust, the waist ornaments of refined young masters. But when they were given the chance to be drawn from the sheaths that restrained them, the bloodthirsty ruthlessness of the blades reflected their masters in every cold glimmer. The tongues of flame came furiously licking at the walls, and within seconds, half of the Xi manor was engulfed in fire. Tianya leapt from roof to roof, knocking the killers who sped after him off the eaves with flying kicks, then flipped onto the roof of the central hall and flashed Shan Zichuan's gold-plated authority token. "The embroidered uniform guard is investigating a case on imperial orders. The Xi clan has privately assembled more than 100-gallon martial arts masters right under the Son of Heaven's nose. Our investigations point to the presence of fugitives and outlaws among them. Xi Hongxuan's traitorous intentions are plain to see. He ought to be executed for this." Tianya's voice rang clear over the courtyard. "This pertains to the incident at Ohua Pavilion and concerns the safety of the Son of Heaven. Anyone involved is to be taken into custody in the Imperial prison. The Scarlet Cavalry has surrounded the Xi manor. I advise you to surrender without a fight." "Don't listen to him!" Xi Hongxuan shouted. "I'm a bosom friend of the Son of Heaven. We face death together. The embroidered uniform guard attempts to murder loyal ministers to cover up their crimes. Those who aid me tonight are the upright heroes of our nation. You can follow me to the palace gates tomorrow morning to receive your reward." The burning rafters collapsed with a thunderous crash. Xi Hongxuan stood amid the waves of heat, not taking a single step back, as he stared fixedly at that flashing figure in the hall. "The eunuch faction has only recently been eradicated. His Majesty encourages everyone to voice their views. What he hates most are treacherous officials like Shan Zichuan who abuse their power to deceive the masses and the throne. Gentlemen, the one who slays him tonight will be a hero. His meritorious deed will go down in history for the ages." Out of sight, Tianya spat. This fatty Xi's silver tongue was second to none. If they couldn't gag that mouth, he would convince these people that black was white. Tianya tucked away the token and leapt down, drawing his blade to face his enemies head-on. The wet sheen of blood sparkled against the blaze in the courtyard. In the outer buildings, the manor had descended into chaos, the air ringing with the shouts and cries of shopkeepers, bookkeepers, and servants trying to escape the inferno. The Scarlet Cavalry outside moved swiftly to block off the gates. A hulking figure stood silhouetted in the door to the Xi Hall. Xi Hongxuan looked on indifferently as the figure leaned back, straight as a ramrod, and toppled over onto the stairs, streaming blood from his gaping throat. Shan Zichuan returned his blade to its sheath, then strode over the corpse's outflung arm and walked down the stairs, step by step. Xi Hongxuan burst out laughing, cackling until he shook all over. So, I still can't hold a candle to you. Even His Majesty wouldn't dare blame you for killing me with this kind of justification. Shan Zichuan tipped his head back to survey that raging fire. You weren't meant to die this early. Shi Hongxuan looked up at the sky and heaved a sigh. He was remarkably calm. Those demented peals of laughter and furious curses had all vanished. Whether I die early or late, I still die being played for the fool by you. What kind of fucking justice is that? I'm not ashamed to lose to you, Shan Zichuan. I concede defeat. But I can't take it lying down. You think yourself still tempered in the crucible of hardship? You've got a long way to go. I meet my end tonight because I underestimated my enemy. But there are plenty of people in this world who see you as the thorn in their side. They're all lined up, waiting their turn. You may kill one, then another, but you will never be able to kill them all. But the real tragedy... He gazed silently at the night sky. You and I weren't born to walk an easy road. Things that are readily available to others, you and I must fight for with our lives. The prejudice between children of principal wives and those of concubines is deep-rooted. How absurd is it that I was born a lawful son, yet have lived a life worse than the common-born brats of other clans? My life is worth nothing, and yours even less. You want to charge ahead, to fight, to seize what power you can. But who knows what will happen in days to come? Shi Hongxuan spread his arms wide, as if asking both heaven and Shan Zichuan at the same time. There is no end to strife. Who will succeed and who will fail? Will your victory be secure when I'm gone? You will kill the others, and the others will kill you. He laughed again, wild and unbridled. Then he crouched to pull a blade out of a corpse on the ground and stumbled toward Shan Zichuan. I'm a man of the Xi clan. In my life, I've triumphed thrice over Xi Guo'an. I'm not inferior to him. My parents were blind. I gave my heart to the wrong woman and exhausted all my love and hatred. Shi Hongxuan brandished a blade and brought it to his own throat. Hot blood sprayed across Shan Zichuan's chest. The blade tumbled to the ground, and Shi Hongxuan pulled at Shan Zichuan's sleeve as he sank to his knees alongside it, slurring his final words through a rictus smile. I will wait for you on the path to the underworld. Shan Zichuan watched Shi Hongxuan collapse at his feet. Warm blood trickled down his fingers. He stood in silence for a very long time, silhouetted against the backdrop of the roaring flames, then flicked his fingers to shake off those lingering droplets of blood. The Xi manor had burned to ash, and the embroidered uniform guard escorted the survivors to the imperial prison. In his audience with Li Tianheng, Shan Zichuan submitted a memorial regarding Shi Hongxuan's misdeeds, detailing how he amassed a private fighting force and resisted arrest. Li Tianheng was shocked, but the evidence of Shi Hongxuan gathering men in his estate was irrefutable. The embroidered uniform guard had even thoroughly checked their backgrounds through the Ministry of Justice. The matter was handled impeccably, with no loose ends. Even the censors of the Chief Surveillance Bureau could find no fault with it. Wei Huaigu was sly indeed. Upon seeing this play out, he hinted to his pupils to first denounce Shi Hongxuan as a treacherous villain who had poisoned the Son of Heaven's mind and led him astray. Before next decrying Shi Hongxuan for putting His Majesty in harm's way, the collapse of the Ohua Pavilion, he announced, had in fact been entirely staged by this man. The Wei clan went all out to absolve themselves of blame, and the Xi clan's former allies turned their backs. Such was the fickle nature of power. When the guests had all left, the abandoned tea grew cold. Yet, even after Ge Qingqing led men to search every street and alleyway of Chudu and examine all entry and exit documents, they found no sign of Qi Huilian and Ji Gang. They're assuredly still in Chudu. Shan Zichuan closed the records on his desk. He intended to use Xianxiang to threaten me. Sending them out of Chudu would have made it harder for him to use them. Xianxiang is an old scholar, but Shifu is a worthy opponent with few equals, said Xiao Tianya. I've already deployed men to keep searching for them in secret. Surely that will yield something. Shan Zichuan said nothing. sinking into his thoughts. Seeing him unresponsive, Tianya had moved to take his leave when Shan Zichuan called out. "Since there's no other business tonight, I'll make a trip to Plum Blossom Manor. There is much to discuss. Go ahead and wait for me there. Ask Gujin what kind of people Xiangyuan Villa sold to Xue Xiuzhuo." Qiao Tianya acknowledged the orders and took his leave. When he stepped outside, a few people were resting in the courtyard. They were all seniors in the embroidered uniform guard of the 4th rank and above. Among them, a few were noble sons whose ancestors held titles and properties, and who had the right to don python robes bestowed by the emperor and carry the Xiu Chun saber. Gu Tingting had led his own men to rest on the other side. Although everyone belonged to the guard, there was a clear division between cliques. Shan Zichuan had advanced through the ranks too rapidly within the last 6 months. It was inevitable that he would draw envy. He rubbed elbows with men in power on all sides, and he had taken over the mantle of Northern Judge, which established him as a top dog among the upper echelon of the embroidered uniform guard's command. The web of connections with the guard was labyrinthine. Pick anyone at random, and they would have their own privileged background and title. When a new commander came in, it was customary for him to swap pointers with the veterans. Shan Zichuan had been too busy with official duties and hadn't yet had time to try to get closer to his men. But once the busy spring planting season passed, they were bound to see each other one way or another on their subsequent missions. Standing between these two unspoken factions, Qiao Tianya's heart sank slightly. He let the curtain fall behind him and left ahead of Shan Zichuan. Xiao Chuye had yet to return from the drill grounds at Mount Feng, and only Gujin remained at Plum Blossom Manor. Qiao Tianya drank half a cup of wine with him and inquired into the matter of Xiangyuan Villa. "A total of 16 people of similar ages, all boys and girls under the age of 20. Gujin and Qiao Tianya sat on the railing along the veranda. The weather was fine, with green buds and sprouts everywhere they looked. As for their backgrounds and origins, I've already told Cao Zi to write them out and hand them over to my master. Your master will see them soon, I'm sure. But this isn't an easy matter to investigate. These people are a motley crew, like a cluster of weeds. There's nothing that connects them other than their ages." "Isn't that just the problem?" Qiao Tianya picked the little porcelain cup, half the size of the usual, off the tray and sipped his wine. He frowned as he rolled it over his tongue. "The harder these people are to investigate, the more important they may be. This wine is pretty good, but why are you using such a small cup? It's scarcely the size of my thumb." "We know why, don't we?" "Drinking gets in the way of work. If you reek of wine when the masters return, you'll be in for a scolding." After the dressing down he had received from Xiao Chuye, Gujin didn't dare to drink as liberally as he had done. He simply sat with Qiao Tianya for a moment. The patrols in the Plum Blossom Manor were under his charge, so he departed a short while later and left Qiao Tianya to entertain himself. Qiao Tianya sat alone on the veranda and drank his wine, appreciating the spring scenery. Content to keep his own company, he remembered his 7-string teen was still here and toyed with the idea of taking it out to play. He rose and made a detour, tray in hand, passing under a veil of verdant branches, when he suddenly heard the notes of the 7-stringed teen. Qiao Tianya followed the sound in search of it. He didn't rush out, but instead brushed aside the trailing branches and glanced around for the source of the music. The long walkway was bathed in sunlight, and a brightly illuminated man sat cross-legged in the center. He wore only a hairpin of aged wood in his inky hair. His sky-blue, wide-sleeved robe was adorned by a jade ornament and a small, flat pouch hanging from his waist. Qiao Tianya couldn't get a clear look at his face. All he could see was the man idly plucking away at the strings. He played a tune, then stopped. The music score was laid out beside him. He was pondering it when a kitten the color of smoke and clouds sprang onto his back and clambered around his neck to bat its paw at a stray lock of hair. The man plucked the cat off and tucked the little creature into his sleeve, his mind still on the teen that Qiao Tianya recognized as his own. He stepped forward slowly, and the man's face gradually came into view. The willow catkins of the 4th month drifted down around them, while green velvet buds hung out to dry in the dazzling sunlight. The man was fair. While Shanzhuan's fairness brought to mind the stark white of frost, this man was like smooth white jade placed under the warm green sunlight of spring. He had none of Shanzhuan's sharpness, nor did he have Shanzhuan's breathtaking allure, yet he was in a class of his own, ethereal and unforgettable. Qiao Tianya, once a young master from a family of officials, recalled a poem his eldest sister-in-law had once recited. Such is the mountain hewn from jade, as is the forest of jadeite pine. His unrivaled beauty, one of a kind, second to none, a man divine. Footnote 1. From Tune of Master Whitestone, a folk song included in Anthology of Yuefu Poetry, a Song Dynasty poetry anthology by Guo Maoqian. Jade and pine are often associated with beautiful men and are used here to signify one whose appearance is beyond compare. Though they had never conversed, Qiao Tianya knew who he was. Truly the epitome of a man of leisure. Qiao Tianya swung his legs over the railing and set the tray on the ground. There's no need to study the score for this tune. If you're keen to learn, I can teach you. The man looked up at him and laughed. I think of wine, and the wine appears. I seek the tune, and the musician arrives. My friend, you're truly my lucky star. The springtime view in the gardens of this estate is excellent. A pity no one appreciates it. It's fate that I've encountered you while enjoying the scenery of spring, and it's pure serendipity that I happen to hear this melody. Kindred spirits are hard to come by. I'm not good at much besides playing the qin. If you pass me by, you'll find no one else here who's up to teach you. Qiao Tianya poured wine for himself while standing. After drinking a cup, he tilted his chin at the man. So, how about it? Serving one's teacher is akin to serving one's father. Footnote number 2, from Liu's Spring and Autumn Annals on Learning, a compendium of philosophies of the 100 schools of thought, compiled around 239 BC under the patronage of Qin Dynasty Chancellor Liu Buwei. The man laid the qin on the ground and dangled his jade pendant to tease the cat, saying in a composed and deliberate tone, To be acknowledged as someone's teacher, you must first convince the student of your worth. Qiao Tianya stroked the light stubble on his chin. I, Qiao Tianya, never lie. Acknowledge me if you're willing to believe me. Forget it if you aren't. The man let the jade pendant fall into his lap and looked at Qiao Tianya again. After a moment, he smiled. I believe you. By the time Qiao Qi... Now we just switched scenes. I wanted to know the mystery person. By the time Xiao Chiye returned, monk on his shoulder and reins in his hand, it was past dark. It was only as he was leading the horse through the gates that Chen Yang remembered and said, Master, there was word a few days ago that Yao Gongzi has returned. Although he avoided the banquet, he will call on you when he can. He's a hard man to track down. Who knows when he'll feel like paying any calls? Xiao Chiye peeled off his dust and sweat soiled outer robe as he strode through the door. If he comes, tell the kitchen to prepare some light dishes for him. He's been with Secretariat Elder Hai so long he's grown accustomed to the man's tastes. He rarely eats meat these days. After coming out to greet them, Gu Jin followed Xiao Chiye inside. Xiao Chiye stroked Meng, still resting on his shoulder. Bring in some boiled meat and fresh water. Meng's had a tiring day too. Is he here? Gu Jin nodded. He arrived a little less than an hour ago. He's handling official affairs in the study. Has he taken his meal? No, Gu Jin replied. His Excellency told the kitchen he'd wait for Gongzi to return so you could dine together. Oh. Xiao Chiye gave him a look as he turned his thumb ring around. Gu Jin got the hint and averted his eyes, not daring to stare longer at Xiao Chiye. But his master's mood seemed to have taken a turn for the better. Before he went farther inside, he took off Wolf's Fang and tossed it to Gu Jin. Give the sheath a wipe down. Xiao Chiye pulled at his collar and took a sniff. Send it in later. I'll sharpen the blade myself. Have someone keep an eye on the serving at dinner. There's plenty to discuss tonight, but be sure to prepare enough hot water. Where's Tianya? Make sure he takes his master's python robe to the laundry room and scents it with incense before morning court. That's all for now. You're dismissed. Gu Jin nodded and withdrew, and Xiao Chuye pushed the inner door open. Shan Zichuan had been listening from inside for quite a while. He dipped his brush in ink without lifting his head. What admirable domestic virtue. Argongza is truly a man after my own heart. Alrighty, everyone. That concludes the reading of our second reading of Tang Jiu Qing Volume 3, covering chapters 80 through 83. I sincerely hope you all enjoyed them because I definitely did. So, honestly speaking, I don't feel like there was really anything within these chapters that was so difficult to understand. I mean, I could be wrong about that. So I'm not going to necessarily do a full recap. More so this time around, I am actually just going to share my thoughts and emotions on the things that happened. So, of course, I'll be recapping some things, but it's not entirely that. So let me just go ahead and start with, sorry, y'all hear my shuffling my pages around and everything. Of course, the opening chapter to this recording, and that's Bride Price. First off, I'm just happy to see us get more Flirty McFlirt. Anytime we're able to get Flirty McFlirt, I am here for it. And then, of course, we have this whole conversation, which, Lanzhou, he wants to use the Northeast Provision Trail to bring in Shi Hongxuan's 4 million, which... in our previous session, we were all thinking that money was definitely for Xiao Chuye. And so it was just funny to see them having their little conversation about it, and just them having this whole flirt while at the same time discussing business. And then eventually, of course, getting to the real business when it comes to things concerning Xue Xiu Zhuo, saying that correctly. And so, honestly, to hear that Xue Xiu Zhuo was planning so many freaking years ahead is honestly pretty scary. And again, sometimes things just fall into your lap and you seize the opportunity when you see a chance. And that's exactly what he did with, certain things that fell into play when it comes to Shi Hongxuan, Shan Zichuan, just all of that. So the guy is very clever, and I'm actually kind of scared of him just a little bit because I don't fully gather all of his cleverness in my head. So it's a bit concerning, if I might say so myself. So anyway, of course, we have both of them doing their dirty work. Well, if we want to call it dirty work. Chuye is thinking, okay, I'm going to use Xue Xiu Yi to get more information on Xiu Zhuo. And Lanzhou is like, I'm going to question Shi Hongxuan again. So boom. It's just wonderful. And of course, we learn that Shi Hongxuan, this man is filthy rich, okay? Not only does he have businesses and stuff, in Chudu, but he's also in foreign trades or dealing with foreigners. I'll put it that way. I won't necessarily say foreign trades. But the point is, he's got businesses out the wazoo, right? So no one truly knows how much the clan has, which is pretty crazy. And so, the question is now just okay, how are they going to hide the money and how are they going to spend the money? Which, of course, Lanzhou is just save it for now, And we also know that Jiang Qingshan is coming to Chudu on imperial orders. And so I'll be interested to see Lanzhou meet him and sound him out a bit to see if he's really truly on Xue Xiu Zhuo's side or if he just is a man who, does his job, essentially. We shall see. So then, of course, when we go to the next chapter, chapter 81, y'all, Shi Hongxuan is suffering in prison. And I when we were talking about, what would happen as far as him dying and giving away Qi Huilian's location and everything. So we all ended up a little bit right in certain directions. And I had thrown out a couple hypotheses. And one of them that I said was, it's possible that while in the prison, Shi Hongxuan's mind would begin to crumble, which is something that was said, that his mental state was crumbling and he was super ill. I'm going to tell you, as soon as that warden thought he was dead and opened the door, I was like, don't do that. Don't do that. He could be pretending. I was like, he could be pretending. And then once you get in there and he grabs a hold of you, anything could happen. I mean, things still ended up okay. But, I was like, gosh. But of course, he took that opportunity to really look at the guard, the warden, and just discern some things and know that, oh, this isn't prison. This is the embroidered uniform guard. This is Shan Zichuan. And he's like, you fucking fucker, basically. And so it's really interesting to just like see that whole scene of Shi Hongxuan trying to talk his way out of the prison-ish, whatever it was, with Shan Zichuan, and we have them like negotiating back and forth. And of course, Shi Hongxuan is basically like, you get the keys, but no Qi Huilian. Or you can get Qi Huilian, but no keys. Like, you're not going to get both. And of course, I have to go to it because I made a note of it. Hold on. What page was it on? Yeah, on page 75, where, hold on, he's like, I don't believe you already know where he is. The more you pretend not to give a damn about someone, the more important they are to you. And I was like, gosh, that's like so freaking true. How does he know this? I mean, we know how he knows this, but I was just like, he so got you pegged in that moment. Like, oh man, that really sucks. So anyway, he doesn't believe that Shan Zichuan knows what Qi Huilian is, and he doesn't. And eventually what I realized, which we already knew this about Shi Hongxuan because it was mentioned before, that one of his greatest strengths was his tongue. Being able to, I think what they call it, a glib tongue. The same thing that he did with the emperor, basically talking down on Xiao Chuye, right? I don't think he really, really, truly talked himself up with the emperor, but making them seem relatable to each other. Like, both of us have been in pitiable situations. He did the exact same play with Shan Zichuan. And even though it said that, Shan Zichuan's murderous intent went down and everything, I was like, my guy, you're sitting here thinking like, I really need to kill Shan Zichuan. But I'm like, this man is still wary against you. Like, you can't possibly believe that he's letting you out here and he's not already on guard against you. Like, seriously? Come on. Let's not be stupid. So I just thought it was very interesting to see their conversation take place, and really just his whole soliloquy. Is it a soliloquy when the character spends their time talking to someone? I don't remember. Not a monologue. So then anyway, he wants Lanzhou dead, obviously. And I'm like, sir, this is your dying time. Like, I felt it coming. I was like, yeah, this guy's about to die. So then obviously when we get to the next chapter, chapter 82, the heck? We have it that a piece of information that Shan Zichuan decided to save was the fact that the manor that Shi Hongxuan lives near belongs to the deceased Prince Qin. Apparently, he used to be on good terms with his father, which was, the Guangcheng emperor, and then eventually sent to house arrest because it was heard that someone the prince employed beat up a villager, like, to death. So it said, I'm saying this now because it said that Shan Zichuan observed, like, he saved that in his mind for a later time. But then also, just when the sister-in-law came out and everything, and Shan Zichuan was observing how he was looking at her kind of in a neutral way, rather than like he was, super in love with this woman or anything like that. He was just noting everything down. I ain't saying nothing. I was like, okay, I'm seeing it too, Shani baby. I'm seeing it. We're seeing this together, right? And so, of course, when he's like, let me go away to shower and everything, I'm like, nah, this man is really he's definitely going to shower, yes, but he's gearing up to do something stupid that's going to get him killed. So anyway, we have where, Shan Zichuan, Shi Hongxuan deduces that the emperor really truly did speak up on his behalf to protect him against anyone, right? And so they're having this conversation. Shan Zichuan is like, let me see Qi Huilian now. And Shi Hongxuan is basically like, you can have mentor T, but you can't have the keys. And you can also still keep that 4 million that you took. Like, that's fine. So then he goes and pretends to leave. And then he's like, lock the doors or shut. I'm just like, sir, I told you not to do nothing stupid. It seems you did not hear me. I don't see my warnings written in this book, so it seems like they did not make it through. But you're about to die. And then not only that, but he's beating up Sidon, which I understand that, whatever. But then, also with his sister-in-law, the woman he originally loved, it's like, I'm sorry, my guy, but she already was with your brother. Years have passed. Like, that ship has sailed, okay? And just because you're giving her, gold and silver and jewelry and all that stuff, giving her what she wants, that doesn't mean that she has love for you. So she already married your brother, established a relationship with him, and then you took her back. I'm wondering how you took her back. Did she want to be taken back? You know what I'm saying, y'all? Did she want to be taken back by you, Mr. I'm obese? Not to say that obese people don't deserve love. That is not what I'm saying at all. But like, it is highly possible that the new look that you have compared to what she knew before is not something she was interested in. There have to be some reasons, whatever they are. So for now, I'm just going with the looks that she decided to sleep with Sidon. If that's even true. Who even knows for real if that's true? And so, he's like, y'all can all die. And I'm like, sir, is it really that serious? Like, is it really that serious? So anyway, then we move on to, the final chapter that we read today, chapter 83. And we just see like, oh my gosh, Shen Zichuan is chill. He's relaxed. He's looking at Shi Hongxuan like a dead man. He's already a dead man. We've been saying for a while that he is indeed a dead man. And it's just funny because when we get to page 92, I highlighted this because I loved it so much, where it was talking about avalanche being the same as wolf's fang. And it's saying, each blade lay dormant in Chudu, collecting dust. And they were just, ornaments on their young master's waists. But then it says, but when they were given the chance to be drawn from the sheaths that restrained them, the bloodthirsty ruthlessness of the blades reflected their masters in every cold glimmer. I just love the personification of Avalanche and Wolf's Fang in this moment, and how it's like the blades themselves are a reflection of their owners, That was really, really cool. And so then, of course, after that, we've got Shen Zichuan is just like, shing, 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 and Qiao Tianya's like, shing, shing, shing. And then, he flashes the authority token and he's bellowing to everyone like, hey, this man is guilty of, getting up 100 martial arts masters. He's got fugitives and outlaws. I was like, so basically what we accused Shi Guan of, or what we had them accuse him of, now they're accusing Shi Hongxuan. Haha, very funny. But the thing is, even with the words that Qiao Tianya said, Shi Hongxuan was not taking this stuff lying down. And I have to talk about this moment when they're talking about a glib tongue, because we have Qiao Tianya who said his spill, basically trying to convince everyone that it was really Lanzhou who's a traitor to the country, blah, blah, blah. And on page 94, it says, if they couldn't gag that mouth, he would convince these people that black was white. The reason I'm mentioning this to y'all is because, like, personally, I related to this line hella heavy, because what we have between Shi Hongxuan and Shen Zichuan, but right now we're focusing on Shi Hongxuan and his capabilities, is he's a master manipulator of words, right? And this is something that I grew up with. And so I just wanted to share something with y'all really quickly, because I was like, holy schwackamole. In my memoir that I published, I have a voice in there, voice, I think 76. Yeah, and I entitled it, The Sky is Not Green. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but when I started it out, I was just like, Mother, do you understand the power you wielded over my mind? You could argue up and down that the sky was not blue, but in fact green, and I would believe you, because you were the one who said it. And if I doubted for 1 second, I would point my own index finger at myself and think I was crazy for not believing. And so just seeing this line of he could convince people that black was white, I was like, holy shit. Oh my gosh, that just hits, the manipulation. People think that lying is a thing to be fearful of or wary of, and absolutely it is. If you got a good liar, that's scary business. But personally, I believe that one who can manipulate is far scarier because which in this instance, of course, he did some lying and manipulation, if you will. But people who can manipulate you are freakishly scary because they can do so without lying. They can say certain things in a certain way to make you believe something. And at the end of the day, with the words that Shi Hongxuan said, technically, he did not lie about anything. It's not necessarily that what he said was truth, but it could be that this is what he believed to be true because of Shen Zitran's actions, Shen Zitran using his power to deceive the masses and the throne. Exactly. So it's just like him saying like if whoever was to kill Shen Zitran, if it was turned out to be that Shen Zitran was deceiving the emperor, if that story could be made that way, then yeah, whoever killed him would get meritorious deeds, all of that stuff. So I was like, man, this guy, yeah, Tianya, you better shut him up. I mean, he ended up shutting his own self up. But I was just like, whew, that line hit a little too close to home for me. Maybe it was totally and wholly unnecessary for me to share that. But I just wanted to share that with y'all because I was like, well, darn Skapinski. So anyway, Guy decides that he wants to give his whole speech one last time. I was like, you talk too much. Could you just have slit your throat a little bit earlier, please? But anyway, that sounds awful. To the well, he sent himself. Okay, so I don't even have to say it. He's gone. Wei Huaigu took advantage of that, shirking all of the blame. But my problem is that we still don't know where Grand Mentor Qi and Jigong are. Where are they? Where are they? This is what I'm concerned about. So then, of course, as far as Lanzhou is concerned, we know that he's elevated way too quickly in 6 months. And now the embroidered uniform guard is split in two, basically for the people who think he's cool, or people who are cool with him, and the people who are not cool with him. And he hasn't really had a chance to make his case, to make people warm up to him. I hope he does get that chance. But anyway, that's that. And we got a tiny little bit more of information on these people that Xuexiu Zhuo purchased. So I'm hoping we'll learn about them at least in the next chapter, since Xiao Chiye and Lanzhou are together. But Mr. Beauty, Mr. Warm Beauty, that is the opposite of the frosty beauty that is Shen Zitran. Who are you? Let me go back to how it was worded. It said that, Shen Zitran's fairness brought to mind a stark white of frost. This man was like smooth white jade placed under the warm green sunlight of spring. He didn't have Shen Zitran's sharpness or the breathtaking allure, but he was in a class of his own, ethereal and unforgettable. I was like, well, I need to see this man. And then, of course, when I turn the picture, I do see him with this little kitty. The kitty is so cute. And y'all, if y'all have the book, you know what I'm saying? Xiao Tianya is pretty handsome. He's got that rugged good-lookingness like Xiao Fangxu. And if there's one thing I love, okay, y'all, I love me a beautiful man. But I also love me a ruggedly handsome man so freaking much. And I love them in Danmei. It's just like, oh my gosh. And then the poem to describe him as well was so freakishly amazing. I was just like, sir, I got this side profile of you, but can I just see you front faced? Okay. I just want to see a little bit more of you. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much it for my thoughts on, these chapters. They were divine. I don't know how I got through them tonight. I was supposed to, it is still Monday, and I was like, I'm just read one chapter tonight, and then, I'll read the rest in the morning and publish the video in the morning. Somehow it is 11:47 p.m. and I have recorded the entire thing for the day. So, I mean, that's great. That means tomorrow morning I can spend that time reading chapters for Thursday, because you're not going to get chapters on Wednesday. Normally, I don't do chapters on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's usually Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. But, I was just so excited to read Tang Jiu Qing that I was just releasing because, and I said that to someone who asked, and I was like, sometimes if I'm just in a zone and if I'm in a flow, then yes, I will release every weekday, or I will release every day. But with the way that my schedule had been last week coming into this week, I am going to slow myself down so I don't burn myself out. You know what I'm saying? Whew. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed these chapters. Also, I had thought about doing it, but if I did that, then I don't know if this video would have been released on time or a little bit delayed. But if y'all do need a recap of the opening chapters as far as any of the political stuff is concerned, please let me know. I do need to go back and listen to my own thing so that I can take my notes and all that stuff. Because I didn't, of course, because we were in the live session. And if it's vital that you all need that, then I will go ahead and make a recap video on those chapters, and then I'll release the video. And then, of course, you'll have gotten it after the next video, this video, but in the playlist, I'll put it in the proper order. So anyway, that is all I have to say. I need to take my butt to bed. Well, Eineman.